Hello and welcome to the third video in our series for creating a custom budget app in Salesforce. This project is part of something we're doing in our Salesforce Saturday group, and we hope that you guys are also able to join us, follow along, and build out some really cool functionality using all the declarative tooling that Salesforce has to offer. If you haven't yet, please go check out the first two videos where we created our custom object schema, our custom fields, our page layouts, our custom tabs, and our Lightning app. Here you see we have our Lightning app, and the first thing we're going to want to do before we start creating this automation using the Flow builder is clear out all the data in budget month and category month. I already did it once, so I'm just going to show you. If you go to your budget month record that you created first, you can just delete this, and as part of the master detail relationship, all the rest of your records should be deleted automatically. The one record that you're going to want to have here is the main budget. So keep this main budget, and you can also keep those categories that you created as well. So we're going to hop on over into Setup. If you don't know how to get there, you click this cogwheel and then click Setup, and this will take you here. And the first place we're going to want to go is our process automation settings. So in order to run scheduled flows, you need to set a default workflow user. This should be blank if you haven't done this already, but go ahead and put your user in there and hit save. Next, we're going to go to Flows, and then at the top right, click New Flow. The first flow we're going to create is going to be a scheduled triggered flow. So over in the start criteria, we're going to set our schedule, and you can just set the start date to be the current day, and 12 a.m. is fine. And we're going to run this daily. Now before we go any further, we're going to create some formulas. The first formula is going to be called the DayOfMonth. It's going to return a number with 0 decimal places, and it's just going to return the day in a number value of the flow's current date. And these global variables are very useful for grabbing what the current day or the current time is. You can also grab other things about the user, about their profile, about the organization itself, system type things. Very useful for getting things that you don't have to necessarily use the out-of-the-box functions for, like today and things like that. I could have written this as day today, but I decided to use this flow current date. So what this returns is just the number value of the current day. The next resource we're creating is also a formula, and it's going to be called the FirstDayOfNextMonth. It's going to return a date, and I'm just going to copy and paste this formula for my notes, and I'll talk a little bit about what it's doing. Basically, this case statement is figuring out what month it is, and then if it's, say, 1, which means January, then it's making it 2/1 with the year being the current date year. And then let's say that it's December, it's going to say, okay, let's add 1 to that year and then make it 1/1. So January 1st of the next year. So we can go ahead and hit done here. And I also posted all of these formulas in the description, so you're able to get them there. And if you have any issues with formulas, please let me know in the comments. The last formula we're going to create is called the next month and year. And it's going to return a text. And I'm going to copy and paste this one as well, just talk about it. It's basically just taking the text value of the current month. So in this case, it's October, so it'd be 10. And then it concatenates it with the text value of the current year. So that's 2022. So this will return 10-2022. The last resource we're going to create is going to be a text template called budget month name. We're going to switch this to plain text so we don't get any markup. And then we're going to say budget for, and take that next month and year formula that we created there. So the first thing we're going to do in our flow is have a decision node. And it's going to be called is it mid-month. And I like to typically make my decisions ask a question. And then in the outcome, in those criteria, I answer those questions. So the only outcome that I'm going to want to have here is mid-month. And the resource I'm checking for is that day of month formula. And I'm going to see, does it equal the day that I want to run this flow every month? So once I actually activate this, I'm going to want that to be the 20th. However, it is currently the 13th. So I'm going to put 13 here temporarily until I'm done debugging the flow and I know it works. I'm going to put not mid-month for the default outcome, because anytime that day of month does not equal the current day, then I want it to just go to the default outcome. The next action we're going to create is under that is mid-month outcome, and we're going to do a get records, getting our main budget. So this is going to get a record from the budget object, and it's going to return the record where name equals main budget. And so remember, very important to have that one main budget record that you created in the last video. We're just going to only store the first record since there's only one of them, and we're going to automatically store all fields. Something that may be a little different for you if you have multiple budget records is you may have to loop through these and create a collection variable. I'll create a video on that another time. And the last action we're going to do in this flow is just a create records. And we're going to say create next budget month. We're only going to create one record, and we're going to use separate resources and literal values just to simplify it. The object we're going to want to create is a budget month, and we're going to store the fields for first day of month using that first day of next month formula that we created. We're going to make our name be that budget month name text template, and then we're going to have our total monthly budget be the value of our total available from that main budget. So if you say get budget dot total available, every time this flow runs, it should populate the value that's in that current main budget. So as you can see here, I have 5,000 in this as my total available. So whenever this changes, I want to update it and then do that probably before the 20th. And then go ahead and click done. Now we're going to go ahead and save this, and we're going to call it the monthly budget month creator. And I'm just going to say what it's doing. It's creating the next budget month every month on the 20th. And before I go and change that value in my decision node, I'm going to debug it. First, I run it in rollback mode just to make sure that it's running correctly. So it looks like it is. It's saying, is it mid-month? Yes, it is. It is the 13th today, so 13 equals 13. It's able to get my main budget record, and then it's able to successfully create the records, but it didn't actually create the records because it rolled it back. So now that I know that's working, I'm going to debug again, uncheck this run flow in rollback mode, and then run. And now if I go over to my UI, I should be able to see under all that budget month that was created for November. So I'm going to just change this to be the current month, and I'm going to put October 1st and save. And you typically not do that every single month. The only reason I did that is to make it easier on myself to not have to just create a budget month record ad hoc. And then I'll go ahead and debug this again, and I will keep this unchecked, run, and it goes ahead and creates my budget month for the next month. Now that I've created my budget month records for this month and next month, I'm going to go back into my decision node, change this to the 20th, hit done, save, and I'll activate it. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that second budget month that we created for November, we're only going to use it initially for testing purposes, and then we're going to delete it. Now, with our first flow created, we know our budget months are going to be created automatically. So we'll create a new flow now, and that will be an auto launch flow. So the same as before, we're going to create some resources. The first one is going to be a formula called current month and year, and it's going to return text. I'm going to copy and paste this guy in, and it's basically just getting the text value of the current month and the text value of the current year. So similar to the formula we created in the last flow, but this time for the current date. The next resource is also going to be a formula called FirstDayOfCurrentMonth. It's going to return a date. And the first part of this is very similar to that formula that we created in the first video when we were creating our custom fields on that expense template record. It basically returns just the first day of the current month. Next, we're going to create that formula we did last time called FirstDayOfNextMonth. It's going to return a date. And again, all of these formulas are in the description. One more formula called next month and year. It's going to return text, and it's just the text value of the first day of next month and the year for next month. Next, we're going to create a resource we haven't seen yet. It's going to be a variable, and the API name is going to be var category. It's going to be a record variable, and it's going to have that object of category. We're going to make it available for input. That way we can pass it in via two particular contexts. So one's going to run in a scheduled manner, and the other one's going to run on record creation. It'll make a little more sense as we go. And this is only going to store a single record, so don't check this, but do make it available for input. We're going to create another variable called var scheduled. It's just going to be a Boolean, so it's a true-false value. And it's going to be available for input because we're going to pass this in when we do our scheduled triggered flow. So like I said, this will make a little more sense as we go, but keep in mind, make it available for input. And the default value, we're going to make it false. We're going to create another variable record. This one's going to be called var new category month. And it's going to also be a record, taking that category month object. And this particular one, we don't really need to make available for input. We're not passing anything in with it. So hit done. We need to create one more variable, and it's going to be called var category month collection. It's going to be a record variable, getting category months, and it will allow for multiple values. So this is a collection variable, meaning that you can use that in a loop and loop over it. It'll make a lot more sense once we get to the point where we use it. And we don't need to make this available for input or output, so hit done. And lastly, we're going to create two text templates. One called current category month name, and it's going to return that category name. So you say var category.name, then with a space. Oh, and one more thing, make sure you view as plain text. As you see, it would have put the markup in my record name if I didn't do that. and then it's going to take also the formula of current month and year. So it'll just be whatever category I'm currently on with that current month and year. And then last but not least, we're going to create our next category month text template. So we have next category month name, and that's going to do the same thing as the last one, except it's going to do the next month and year. So var category dot name space, oh, again, same thing. Make sure you do plain text. I always forget to do that. And then take that next month and year. So we've created all the prerequisites here. Now we're going to get started in the flow. So the first thing we're going to create is a get records. And that's going to be called get next budget month. The object is going to be the budget month. And it's going to match for that first day of month equals that first day of next month formula. We're just going to store only the first record and automatically store all the fields because we don't care too much about performance with this. We don't have a lot of other processes running in the background. The next action we're going to take is a decision node, and it's going to ask, is this a scheduled flow or the create trigger? And if you remember, we have that var scheduled Boolean variable that we'll use for this. So scheduled will be my first outcome, and we're going to say var scheduled equals true. And since that's just a Boolean, the other value can be false, we're just going to put this as a new record. So when it's passed in via the scheduled flow, it's going to have this set to true, and it's going to go a certain way. When it's a new record, it'll go a different way. So first we're going to solve for our scheduled path, and we're going to kind of jump back and forth between the scheduled and the new record paths. We'll start over here, and this is going to first do another get records, and it's going to check for the existing next category month. A little bit of a long name, but I like typically putting in longer names in favor of doing a description. That way I can just tell from the node name what that's doing. So we're going to get the category month object, and we're going to find that category that equals that var category. And remember, this is a record variable that we're passing in, so it'll be the var category.id. And it's also going to make sure to try to find the one that is first day of month equals the first day of next month. So we're just checking to see if there is a category month for next month for the category we passed in. Next, under the scheduled path, we're going to do another decision. And this decision is going to check whether or not that category month was found for next month. So, was next category month found? And I'm going to say next category month found for my first outcome. And all I'm doing here is I'm just going to check, did it return a record? So I'm going to say category month from check for the existing, and I'll hit a backspace there to just only evaluate this record variable, because what a get records does is essentially creates a record variable. It's not the same thing as a record variable in the sense that we created that var category, var new category month, but it is a record variable that I can evaluate, is it null? And if it's null, or if it's not null, then I'm going to know that it was found. And I'll say for this, not found. And done. So when a category month record is found for the next month, I don't want to do anything. But when it's not found, I want to create those records. So the first thing I'm going to do is create an assignment node. And I'm going to call this set next category month values. The variables that I'm going to be setting here are for this new category month variable, and you'll see the way that this is supposed to work to allow for me not to have to write something more than once. It's called dry principles, and it'll make a little more sense once we're finished with the flow, how I'm basically using this assignment, using this variable, using this collection variable. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to say var new category month, and then I'm going to see the budget month, and that budget month is going to be set to that get next budget month.id. So that original record that we got up here, I'm going to set that to be my budget month lookup, or rather master detail, for the new category month. The next one is also going to be for var new category month, and it's going to say the budgeted amount, it's going to be that category's default budget. So the budgeted amount is being obtained from what the default budget is on the category record that we're passing in. I'm just going to create these last three so I have room for it. I'm also going to do var new category month with the category itself. So for the category lookup, I'm going to say that's the var category ID. Again, for that new category month variable, I'm going to say the first day of month is going to be the first day of next month. And last but not least, I will set what the name is. So this is going to be the name of the record, and it's going to be that next category month name text template. And so these are all the 5 values I'm going to be setting in my category months as I create them. I'm going to click done. I'm going to do another assignment here, and this assignment is to basically build my collection. So I'm going to say add to category month collection. So the var category month collection is going to have a record added to it. So you have an operator for add, and it's going to add that var new category month. And I'm just going to hit backspace to really just take in that entire variable. So basically here you have this collection variable which has that category month object, and then I'm just adding this variable I just set a whole bunch of values for to that collection. Now we're going to move into our new record outcome, and we're going to do a get records for the current budget month. So we're going to say get current budget month. And it's going to return the budget month where that first day of month equals the first day of the current month. We're going to only find the first record and automatically store all fields and click done. And then because we know that we need to create a current category month for the new category that was created, we're going to just use that with an assignment. And actually what's easier to do here is use the copy and paste function. So I'm just going to copy this guy using this copy, and then I'm going to paste in the copied elements and change this up. So I'm going to say set current category month values. I'll just delete that and then click back into it to set the API name better so it doesn't have that 0 at the end. And I'm going to keep all of these the same because these are all the same things I'm wanting to set. But instead of getting the next budget month, I'm going to want to get that current budget month. So get current budget month ID. I'm going to still get the category's default budget. I'm still going to get the record ID for it, but I am going to get the first day of month from that first day of current month formula. And then instead of using the text template for next month, I'm using the text template for current. So current category month name. And done. It's a good way to save time. Copy and paste. And I'll do the same thing for this. I'll say copy element, paste it. And then this I don't even really need to change the name for. It's adding the var category month record to that collection. And I can just have that 0 there, no big deal. Because it's basically doing it for the exact same variable. And now right under that, I'm going to create a decision. And I'm going to ask myself, was the next budget month found? And for my outcome, I'm going to say next budget month found. And this I'm going to evaluate that first get records. So I'm going to say, was that actually found when a new record is being created for category? This will make a little more sense once we finish, and I'll kind of explain it. So I'm going to say for that get next budget month, and just backspace to evaluate the record variable itself, and say is null false, and that means that it was found. And if it wasn't found, let's say not found. So you might be wondering, why am I evaluating this decision on this record? The reason is because I want to be able to reuse this piece of my flow in the situation where a next budget month was found. Let's say you create a category record and you haven't yet created the budget month records via your other flow, the monthly budget creator flow. What we want to do is we want to only create that current category month rather than also creating the next category month. So this is why this decision is here, and it's basically evaluating, was that next budget month found? If it is, then all we're going to do here is we're going to just connect this. So you say connect to element, and then we're going to choose to just connect this to there. And if it's not found, that means that there wasn't a budget month created yet. That means this category record that we just created was done probably earlier on before the next budget month actually got created. So in my case, it'd be before the 20th. All right, and then the last thing we're going to create here is our create action. So we're going to create records for the collection variable. So this is going to be called create any category months. And it's going to create multiple, and we're just going to pass in that record collection. And that's all we do. We don't have to worry about what we're actually creating in this create records because we already have the values in this collection. And there's the flow. So let me explain a little bit more how it's working. So first, we're getting the next budget month. It's deciding, was it a scheduled flow or was it a new category that got created? If it's just going through and it's maybe the 25th for me, because I'm going to run my category month schedule flow 5 days after my budget months get created, then it'll go through this path. It'll first check for an existing next category month. So, let's say that you create the category and maybe it already creates the next one because it's in between the 20th and the 25th. So it goes through here. Then it says, okay, we don't have a current category month because this is a new category. And then it says, oh, the next budget month was found. Okay, because it's after the 20th, after that had been run. And so it goes over here and it says, okay, let's also set the next category month values. And then it adds it to the collection. So now I have 2 records in my collection. And when I get down here, I'm creating those. So in that situation, it's going to say, okay, we already have a next category month. So it'll go down this path and it just won't create anything, right? Which is fine. If you don't need it to create anything, if those records already exist, then cool. Now in the situation where we're creating a new category and there isn't a next budget month yet, because maybe that's before the 20th, what it'll do is it'll go through this new record. It'll say, let's get the current budget month, which should already be created because the current budget month gets created in the previous month. Then it sets the current category month values using that record variable, adds it to the collection, and since there wasn't a next budget month found, since this turned up null, it's just going to say we didn't find it, so let's only create the category month for the current month. So that's the basics of how this flow works. If you have any questions about dry principles and you're wanting to know how to utilize record variables, utilize collections, maybe you just don't understand the concepts, feel free to leave a question in the comments. I'm happy to answer. So we're going to go ahead and hit save, and we're going to call this create category months. And we're going to say that this creates any category months dependent on if budget months already exist and whether the flow was run in a scheduled or new category context. All right, so we know how this flow works. Let's just do a little bit of debugging. So we're going to debug this, and we need to have a category. So let's just use the categories that we already have. So we go to our main budget, and I'm just going to use the utilities category. So for utilities, and I want to say this is a brand new record. So I'm leaving this var scheduled unchecked, and I'm going to just run it in rollback mode, hit run. And so it's saying, okay, it is a new record because that var scheduled is false. So it gets the current budget month. It's able to find it because we had created it when we created the last flow. And then it's setting those current category month values. It's adding it to the collection. It's saying, was the next budget month found? That was also found because we, as you saw, we created both of those for testing purposes. And then because it did find that next budget month, it's going to set the next category month values, add that new record to the collection, and then it's going to create two records. So right now, this should create two records if I debug it without running in rollback mode. All right, so let's see if it worked. So we should have related category months to utilities. And there we go. We have a utilities category month for November and one for October. Now let's debug it again, and this time we're going to say, okay, it's scheduled. And what it should do is it shouldn't create any records. I'm going to go ahead and run this in rollback mode just to double check. And then we can see, okay, it gets the next budget month, it finds it, it says this is running in the scheduled context, and then it's going to check to see if that existing next category month exists. In our situation, it does because we just created them, as if we created a new category. Then it goes all the way down, and because that create action doesn't have any records in the collection to create, it doesn't create anything. So variable values is none. Now let's just test the other situation where the current one exists but the next one doesn't. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this utilities category month for November. And I'm going to run my flow again. So now I can see, okay, it's finding the next budget month and it's checking for the next category month, but that doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and create the next category month. And if I run this without rollback mode, it should automatically create that new utilities category month. All right, so it looks like our flow is good. We're going to go ahead and activate it so we can invoke it from two other flows. And these last two flows are going to be really simple and basic. This first one is going to be a scheduled flow. And we're going to just set this to be the current date with have it being midnight, and it will run daily. And the first thing I want to do for this is I want to make sure to have a category be passed in. So this is going to run for all categories. We don't have to have any criteria for this. We're going to say run for all the categories. So you choose your category object, then say none for the condition requirements. Create a formula, and that formula is going to be that day of month. Same formula that we created last time, where it returns a number with 0 decimal places, and it just returns the day of that flow current date. Same thing as that first flow we created, not the second flow, but the first flow we created. And then this is going to be very, very basic. All we're doing is going to be checking to see if it's that day. So we're going to say, instead of saying is it mid-month, we're going to say is month almost over. So for me, that's going to be the 25th. Now it's entirely up to you when you run these flows, but it is very important that you run your budget month record creator flow before you run your category month. So for this, I'm going to say month almost over, and that means that the day of month equals whatever the current date is. So I would say 25 right here, but in order to test it initially, I'm going to put 13, which is the current date. Oh, and I'm also going to say not over. There's only one thing we're going to add into this, and it's going to be a subflow. And it is that create category months flow. I'm just going to copy the reference flow into the label. And we're passing in some variables, right? So we pass in the category, which will be the record global variable. And we can just hit backspace to say the record. And then var scheduled, in this case, is going to be true, because it needs to run in the scheduled context. Since this flow runs in the scheduled context, it's saying yes, we are running in a scheduled context. This is going to happen every single month, and it's going to happen on the day we choose in our decision. So this one I'm going to call the monthly category month creator. And it's going to create category months every month on the 25th. All right, and so that's it. Now we're going to go ahead and debug it. We're going to run it in rollback mode just to make sure that that decision criteria works. Appears like it does. 13 equals 13. And so this flow will then get invoked, and it will go ahead and run. Now, this is a good way for us to not run in rollback mode and have it work for the other categories. So if we go back to our main budget and we go to like our mortgage category, you'll see there's no category months currently. So let's go ahead and debug this, uncheck run in rollback mode, and it should do it at least for one record. I know when you debug a scheduled triggered flow, it doesn't run it for all records. In order for it to run it for all records, you actually have to run it at a certain time. But we're going to say, looks like the category has an ID of this. So let's just pass that into our URL. This is a trick for getting to the record that you want. And so that is utilities. I guess that didn't really work for us. Instead, delete our utilities for next month, because we know we should already have one for the current month. And then we can go ahead and debug this again. We don't want to run in rollback mode, sorry. Hit run. And now we should have another record here. And there we go. So we know it's working. So we'll go ahead and change this to the desired date. For me, that's the 25th. Hit save and activate. All right, and then the last flow we're going to create is a record triggered flow. And this is going to trigger off of when a category gets created, and only when it gets created. We don't necessarily need to worry about updates. We don't care about condition requirements either, so we'll just say none. And we want to say actions and related records and add a single action here, which is that subflow create category months. And again, we pass in our variables, which is, in this case, var category is going to be that record from the record triggered flow. And var scheduled is going to be false. Since it's not running in the schedule context, it's running in the new record context. And we're going to call this create category month on category create. And the reason I said months is because it could create multiple, it could create just one. So it creates one or more category month records when a category is created, and save. So let's go ahead and debug this guy, and we'll make sure that it gets done for mortgage. Unfortunately, this one runs in rollback mode, but what we can go ahead and do is just create a new category in the UI after activating to make sure it's working properly. All it's doing here is it's showing us that it's invoking the subflow, but you might see on the right here, it is doing all of these various things. So it is setting that current category months, and it's setting the next category month, so it will be creating two records. Let's do that after activating this. So we'll go to our categories. We'll create a new category, and let's just call this snacks, and the default budget is under 50. It's kind of low for snacks for me, I suppose. The budget will be main budget, and we'll save it. And we should automatically have two category month records created for snacks. Awesome. All right, so that was the last flow we're going to create. In the next video, we're going to create our screen flow for adding expenses. And that screen flow is going to be able to show you a variety of different things, including how much you're over and under by in your current budget for that category month. So I really hope that you guys can join us there. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we'll see you soon.